Hey everybody, Adam here from Menta Watches. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to review and talk about 9 new watches hitting the website. It's only 9 because our man behind the camera, Guy, is going on vacation for 2 weeks, so we're not gonna have time to get any more up before Thanksgiving, but we'll have a lot for you after that. But we have some really amazing watches going to the site this week, if I dare say so myself, some that I really love. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. I guess let's start as always with Rolex. We have a Rolex Explorer reference 1016. This is no ordinary 1016. This is an early 1960s example with what's called a gilt chaptering dial. And also, as we've talked about on the channel before, but if you're new here, if you see below the 6 o'clock luminous marker, you'll see a little dot. That's what we refer to as an exclamation dot or an exclamation dial. It was used by Rolex to signify a transition in the lume compound that they use. So traditionally, you will find that the radium on these dials is a lot less than something from an earlier generation from the late 50s or even like 1960, 61. The lume dot will show you that it won't be as radioactive. At this time, Rolex was experimenting with a lot of different lume compounds, and this is just one of the way, in addition to an underline dial, that they would tell their consumers that the lume is now different than how it used to be. This one also has a really cool wabi-sabi style dial, aged with this cool brown patina. I wouldn't call it tropical because I think it was a combination of the natural aging of the lacquer and some maybe humidity and elements getting into it. Either way, it has this really cool pattern to it, really unique look, stunning yellow patina, and on a very cool stretch rivet CNI bracelet, CNI standing for American Distributed Bracelet, not signed Swiss, but made by Rolex for the American market. Next watch we have on deck is a personal favorite for those under 10K Rolex watches that are available. This one is a Rolex Sea-Dweller reference 16600. The 16600 is the third Sea-Dweller generation after the 1665 and the 16660. The biggest difference between the 16660 and the 16600, that's a mouthful, is an upgraded movement, and towards the end of the generation of the 16600s, they move from tritium dials to luminova dials. This is still an early version with a tritium dial, and it is one of the most spectacular examples we've ever had in stock. The case is razor sharp and unpolished, and it has this beautiful yellow patina with matching dial and hands. Really amazing watch, and I absolutely love these watches. We talk about them a lot on the channel in terms of a great value buy vintage watch, because this fits in that neo vintage category where if you're looking down on it, you get that vintage look and appeal and aesthetic with the nice yellow patina. But being in a more modern case with the sapphire crystal, upgraded movement, upgraded steel from earlier generations, you have a much more sturdy watch that I know a lot of people always wonder if you can go swimming with it. Well, obviously this one, absolutely you can, and I wouldn't worry about it too much. So it's a really spectacular example, and like I said, under 10 grand, it's really hard to beat that kind of value. Moving on from Rolex today, before we jump back into it, we have 2 kind of dressy watches that I'm really a big fan of. The first is a 1970s Cartier reference 17011. I believe it is their jumbo automatic. These watches, like I said, were produced in the 1970s. This one with a Paris style, meaning it was produced for the French market, because this was at a time when Cartier was split up between Cartier London, Cartier Paris, Cartier New York. And the cool part about this one, it has a little bubble on the back, so it sits a little bit higher on your wrist. Like I said, it is their jumbo size, so it wears extremely well. And these were fit with an ETA movement, so it's really a workhorse movement that shouldn't cause you any problems, even for a watch being from the 70s. Also, in the same vein and from the same era, we have a really stunning Patek that I actually just bought today and I'm such a huge fan of. We had one similar a few weeks ago. This one comes from the same Ellipse family. While that one had a integrated bracelet, this one is a reference 3862 on a leather strap with regular lugs, which I think is more of a mass appeal kind of watch. I nicknamed the one we had a couple weeks ago the double blue because it was fit with this beautiful double colored two-tone blue sunburst style, with the outer track kind of being this lighter blue color and inner being a more dark blue. Really such a stunning look. I wish Patek would do some stuff like this ever again. And if you really look at the shape of this case, coming in at like 33, 34 millimeters, it fits really well, and it's kind of reminiscent of another watch we're right about to talk to with the same rounded style case, which is the Patek Philippe Jumbo Aquanaut. We have 3 sports watches from the top 3 guys, Patek, Audemars and VC coming up. This one happens to be my favorite, dare I say, daily wearer watch. I made that comment on Instagram when I posted this watch a few days ago, and somebody messaged me privately and said, damn, that's a really expensive daily. And you know what? That person is not wrong. But when you're talking about sports watches from these major brands, now, obviously, you know, coming in at $40,000 is not going to be the most relatable, inexpensive watch. But if you are looking in this range, for me, this is the most wearable sports watch out of all on a daily level. The 5065 was Patek's original jumbo Aquanaut, introduced, I think, in 1998. The first Aquanaut they came out with was 97, which was the 5060, which was essentially the same watch, a few millimeters smaller with a closed back. The following year, and produced around the same time or at the same time, was the 5065 coming in at 38 millimeters, so a 3 millimeter jump with a display back and an upgraded Cal 315 movement that was decorated a little bit better. This is also when Patek introduced on the Aquanaut the Tropic strap that everybody loves so much and that they've carried through even till today. For me, this is such an amazing watch, and that's why you see it on so many people's wrists all the time. It's the perfect size, not knocking the 40 millimeter plus variant, but for me, coming in at 38 millimeters, this is absolutely the best variant they ever made. Up next, we have one of my favorite watches also to have in stock, a watch I absolutely adore to wear, Mr. Genta's probably most famous and recognizable design, the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. This is the absolute genesis of the Royal Oak, reference 5402. This happens to be an A serial, meaning it was in the first batch of 2,000 watches produced and debuting at 1972, so presumably the A serials were from like 72 to 74. The 5402 is an absolutely iconic watch, and it is the starting point for all Royal Oaks that would follow. The modern 15202 and 16202 are an extension of this original design with a tapisserie dial, blue with an AP logo at 6 o'clock. Honestly, it's one of the most comfortable watches to wear with an integrated bracelet. And like I said, for me, it is Gerald Genta's arguably his best design in the sports watch category of all time. Moving away from sports watches of the three big brands for a second and hopping right over back to Rolex, let's talk about the two GMTs sitting in front of me. As everybody knows, when it comes to sports Rolex, the GMT-Master is my favorite model, so I genuinely love having them in stock. If you're new to the channel, you would not know that the GMT-Master is my absolute favorite sports Rolex and the one you will see me wearing personally the most, so I absolutely adore having these watches in stock. Now, while these watches may have been produced around the same time period, they're anything but alike. They happen to be both late 60s, early 70s matte dial examples with Mark I long E dials, meaning the E in Rolex is absolutely flush and even, and on different generations, the middle I guess stick of the E would be shortened, so it wouldn't be kind of perpendicular? No. Even? We'll go with even. Anyways, we'll show you a close-up of the E so you see what we're talking about. The one on my left here is watch only, but it happens to be in absolutely fantastic condition and with everybody's favorite fuchsia bezel. The fuchsia bezel is a Pepsi bezel that has aged with a purple hue, and I've figured out through years of doing this now that the Mark I long E dials should be the only GMT that the fuchsia bezel was absolutely born on. In my experience, obviously can't confirm this for a fact, but every time I've ever had a fresh barn find fuchsia bezel GMT, it's always been on a Mark I long E. You'll see people put them on different generations, and listen, anybody's free to, you know, play around and change the color and look of their GMT as they wish, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I think it's personally fine to personalize your watch to the way you want to wear it, but in my humble opinion, the fuchsia bezel should really only be on the Mark I GMT. This one happens to be in fantastic condition with an unpolished case and original 7206 with 80 end links, Swiss rivet bracelet, which is the bracelet you really want to see on this watch, dated to 1969, so following in the same serial range as the watch. Honestly, a stunning example. And to my right, we have also a very nice example of a Mark I GMT with a little bit brighter yellow patina, a nice faded red Pepsi insert, and this one happens to have its original box and papers, even with its original sales receipt when it was originally sold in 1975 to a Donald Allen in British Columbia from the John Stewart Jeweler Limited store. Another interesting thing to note is that while this watch has a serial of 2.8, so it would probably date around 72, 73. It was sold in 1975, which is very common to see. You will very often see Rolexes that were sold several years after they were produced because Rolex was not very popular back in the day. I've even bought watches that were sold 10 years after they were produced, and people always ask me, how can that be? Well, the simple fact is that Rolex wasn't the brand it is today. Not as many people knew about it or wanted to buy them or looked at them as investments or whatever. They were usually just considered high-end tool watches. They were not luxury items, so oftentimes they would sit in cases and go unsold for years. Moving along to our final watch, actually probably the one I'm most excited to have in stock because it's just something you really never see, and I love buying stuff and owning stuff and being able to provide to you guys stuff that you really just can't find. This is a Vacheron Constantin 222 created by Jörg Heisek, not Gerald Genta. Sometimes people get confused. Probably their most iconic sports watch design. This one is a reference 46003. It is their two-tone model, and the cool thing about this one is twofold. Number one, it has a original black dial. You generally only see these, and very rarely even at that, in solid gold cases. This is the first one I've seen in a two-tone case personally. Maybe there's others out there. If you guys know of any more, hit me in the comments below. It's in impeccable condition. It came from the original owner, unpolished, super sharp. We just had it serviced, which seemed like it was the first time getting serviced ever, in spectacular condition, and it has its original box and papers, which I've personally never had on a 222 midsize. I've had it on a jumbo. I've never had it on a midsize. You see the original Vacheron box, and we get to see what the box and papers from this watch looks like. It has a service booklet, and it has the original certificate book, certificate of origin, and this one was originally sold in, drumroll please, if I could find it. And it was sold in March of 1987. Honestly, something you really never see. And like I said, I love having watches that either I've never owned before or I know are just very difficult to track down. Personally, a huge fan of the mid-size watches. Everybody knows, I've talked about it before, my wrist isn't the biggest, so wearing jumbo-sized watches sometimes feels a little bulky on my wrist. These are absolutely the perfect medium spot, you know, or medium-sized watch, and happy place for me to wear. Not that I can't wear the jumbos, but I really prefer to wear these mid-size watches more. Anyways, that about wraps it up for the 9 watches hitting the site today. If you're interested in any, please drop us a line below. If you like this video, please, if you can, comment, subscribe, whatever. We are going to be shooting a very special video that a lot of people have asked us to do a follow-up on one of our most legendary guests of all time. Stay tuned for that next week, guys. Have a happy Thanksgiving for everybody in the United States and everybody else. We still love you all the same. See you on the next one, guys. Bye. I hate you so much, guy. Somebody's going to be like, you're abusing your employees. Need to be abused more, goddammit. Very nice watches. Okie dokie. Happy. Dance, monkey, dance. Jesus Christ, wait. Oh my God, I had like a panic attack while looking at this watch that I thought the dial was off center, like something was broken, but it was just me holding the bracelet. Bloopers are great. Well, because you're an idiot, so it's like...